The sun rose over the quiet suburbs of Brookhaven, Oregon, casting long shadows across the dewy lawns. It was a peaceful town, the kind where people left their doors unlocked and neighbors still greeted each other by name. On the corner of Maple Drive stood a two-story brick house that belonged to the Bellamy family. Daniel, a local pharmacist, his wife Claire, a part-time librarian, and their only child, 8-year-old Emily. By all accounts, they were the picture of normalcy. Loving, polite, and involved in community events. No one had a bad word to say about them. But on the morning of March 18th, 2018, something changed. The Bellamys didn't show up for Sunday service at the local church, something they never missed. Claire didn't text her sister like she usually did every morning. Daniel didn't open the pharmacy. At first, it was brushed off. Maybe they went on an unannounced trip. But by evening, when Emily missed her piano recital and their phones went straight to voicemail, concern turned to dread. Next door, an elderly widow named Mrs. Hargrove was the first to notice something off. She hadn't seen Claire gardening in the front yard all weekend. The house was unusually silent. The lights that were normally on in the hallway during the evening remained off, and the mail, it had been piling up since Friday. By Monday morning, Mrs. Hargrove called the police. When Officer Marcus Grant arrived at the Bellamy home, nothing seemed immediately wrong. No broken windows, no signs of forced entry. The front door was locked, the porch light was off, and Daniel's silver sedan was still parked in the driveway. Grant knocked. No answer. He walked around the back. Same thing. Silent. Still then. He saw the dog. Their golden retriever, Max, was barking non-stop inside the house. Through the living room window, Grant could see the dog pawing at the door, agitated and alone. That's when he made the call to dispatch. They needed to enter the house. A locksmith was brought in. By noon, the door swung open. Inside, it was freezing. The thermostat had been turned all the way down. The house smelled faintly of bleach and something else, something metallic. Max ran out the second the door opened, clearly distressed. The living room was spotless. Too spotless. No shoes by the door. No jackets on the coat rack. The house looked staged, like a show home in a catalogue. Upstairs, Emily's room was perfectly made, her favorite stuffed bunny neatly placed on the pillow. Nothing seemed broken or tossed. No signs of struggle, but something wasn't right. The closets were empty. All the clothes were gone. So were the suitcases. In the kitchen, Grant opened the fridge. Empty. Just 2 bottles of water. The trash bin, missing entirely. But it was the basement that made him pause. The door was slightly ajar. The light inside was flickering. He slowly stepped down. The air grew colder. The smell of bleach stronger. At the bottom of the stairs, he found a large plastic sheet laid out over the concrete floor. In the corner sat a bucket filled with what looked like used rags and a pair of yellow cleaning gloves. But no blood, no bodies, nothing that could be called evidence, at least. Not yet. Grant stepped back up and radioed it in. "We've got a possible missing persons situation. Whole family. House looks wiped clean." Detective Rachel Monroe had seen her fair share of strange disappearances. But something about the Bellamy case gnawed at her from the start. The moment she walked through the front door of the house, a chill ran down her spine, and it wasn't just because the heat had been turned off. It was the silence, the kind that didn't feel empty, but watched. She scanned the living room again. The coffee table was clean. No magazines, no remote, not even a speck. of dust. Family photos were still on the wall, perfectly straight. But something small caught her eye. The fireplace mantel had a faint, circular ring in the dust where something had recently been removed. A missing photo frame, a clock. Why take just one thing? Rachel moved toward the study. Daniel's laptop was missing, but the charger was still plugged into the wall. On the desk sat a half-burned candle and an old leather notebook. Inside, she found pages torn out violently. What remained were fragments of what looked like patient notes and an entry that read, "She asked me if someone had been in the house while she was sleeping. ... I laughed it off. But maybe I shouldn't have. Claire, Emily. Was Daniel writing about his own family? The thought settled heavy in her chest. If there was tension inside the home, no one had mentioned it. Friends, neighbors, even co-workers described the Bellamys as a close-knit, drama-free family. But Rachel knew better. Appearances lied. She called forensics and stepped back into the hallway. Just then, her phone buzzed. It was the tech team that finally accessed the family's phone records. Something strange stood out. Claire's phone had last pinged off a tower near Forest Route 19, deep in the state reserve, nearly 50 miles from their home. After the time they were supposedly last seen, and it wasn't just one ping, it was moving. The same phone connected to 3 separate towers, stretching across a rural highway, then suddenly going dark. Someone had taken Claire's phone and tried to make it look like she had left town. Rachel didn't believe in coincidences. She believed in patterns. And this one smelled like staging. Back at the house, one of the officers called her over. "Detective, you'll want to see this," he said, holding a small plastic bag. Inside was a tiny earring, delicate, shaped like a star. It had been found wedged deep between the floorboards in the hallway, right outside Emily's bedroom. Rachel held it up, her face tightening. The metal was smudged with what looked like dried blood. Suddenly, the pristine house didn't feel so clean anymore. She looked back down the hallway, toward the basement door. Whatever happened in this house hadn't left quietly. Detective Rachel Monroe drove up the winding road toward Forest Route 19. The trees thickened with each mile, their bare winter branches scratching at the gray sky like bones. She had a gut feeling about this place, the kind that made her fingers tighten on the steering wheel. She pulled off the road near the last cell tower that pinged Claire's phone. There was no traffic, no homes, just a dirt path, barely wide enough for a car, and a hand-painted wooden sign that read, "No trespassing." Rachel ignored it. She followed the trail on foot, boots crunching over frozen leaves. Her breath fogged in the cold air. This forest felt ... wrong. Too quiet. No birds, no rustling, just stillness. As if even the animals were afraid to make a sound. About 100 yards in, she spotted something. A thin strip of red fabric caught on a branch. Rachel pulled it free. Silk torn. It could have been from a scarf or a blouse. She radioed her team. Possible evidence found. Marking coordinates. Keep searching west of the tower. Suddenly, she heard a crunch behind her. She spun around, hand on her gun, but no one was there. Her heartbeat slowed. Just nerves, she told herself, but her instincts disagreed. Back at the station, forensic results from the earring came in. The blood was a match for Emily Bellamy. She was only 11. Rachel sat in silence, staring at the test results. This wasn't a runaway case. This was a crime scene. One, the killer tried to erase but failed. She pulled out the family's last security footage again. At 10:42 p.m. on January 5th, a shadow passed by the camera near the garage. Just one, no clear face, no car, just a figure moving quickly, heading toward the backyard. And then, at 10:45 p.m., the camera shut off. Power outage, cut wires. Rachel sent it to the tech unit for analysis. Something was hiding in the 3-minute window between the shadow and the silence. And that something might be a killer. The Bellamy house had stood silent for nearly 10 days. Yet Rachel knew houses like this, especially in crimes like these, never truly stayed quiet. They remembered things. Crime scene technicians were back, this time with 3D scanners, luminol spray, and high-intensity forensic lighting. Rachel moved slowly through the living room as soft lights passed over every wall, searching for anything the killer might have missed. In the upstairs hallway, something caught her eye. There was a faint, almost invisible handprint on the wall. Small, child-sized. It was smudged, streaked slightly downward, like someone had tried to hold on. Or was dragged. She called the team over. They sprayed luminol. The wall lit up more prints. Small footprints. A thin trail leading toward the guest bedroom. The one that hadn't been touched since the Bellamys disappeared. Rachel stepped inside. The room smelled faintly of bleach. A closet door creaked slightly ajar. Inside, under the hanging coats, a blood-stained blanket lay balled up in the corner. It was Emily's favorite cartoon print, something she always took to sleepovers. Rachel didn't say a word. Downstairs, Tex managed to restore audio from the front door camera. It was faint, but at 10:44 p.m., just seconds before the power cut, a voice could be heard, 2 words, whispered, "Please stop." Rachel felt sick. Whoever came to that house didn't just take the family, they terrorized them. She returned. Rachel drove through the night. The highway lights faded the farther she got from the city. Soon, all that remained were crooked trees and the occasional rusted mailbox. Mason Creek wasn't on most maps anymore, just a name people used to know. The GPS led her down a dirt path, barely wide enough for her car. Branches scraped the windows. A broken road sign leaned to the side, half covered in ivy, Whistler Trail. She kept driving. Eventually, the trees cleared. An abandoned farmhouse stood in the middle of a snow-covered field. Its windows were boarded. The roof sagged, but something about it didn't feel entirely empty. Rachel parked a few feet away and stepped out. Her boots crunched on the icy ground. There were tire tracks, fresh dot, and footprints. Too many for just one person. She raised her flashlight and moved toward the house. As she reached the porch, a loud creak echoed from inside. Her breath caught. She gripped her gun. The front door was unlocked. Inside, the air was freezing. The wallpaper peeled off in long strips. But what caught her eye wasn't the decay. It was what was new. Cables, cameras, microphones, all hidden inside. The walls. This place wasn't just abandoned. It had been used recently to watch, record, and maybe even trap someone. She found a hatch behind a bookshelf. A staircase led downward. And from below, she heard it, the faint hum of machinery still running. Rachel descended slowly, 1 foot at a time. The wooden stairs groaned beneath her. The basement was colder than the air outside, as if the darkness held its own kind of chill. When she reached the bottom, her flashlight landed on something she didn't expect. A chair bolted to the floor. Around it, walls lined with monitors. recording equipment, and scrapbooks. The screens were off, but the red lights blinked. The machines were alive. Rachel moved closer. On a nearby table sat a dusty binder labeled "Candidates." She opened it. Inside were photos, dozens of families, smiling faces, kids playing, parents laughing, all cut out and glued onto pages, like some twisted yearbook. Next to each photo was a rating system: access, easy schedule, predictable alarm system, none notes, garage entry at 10:45 p.m., responds to item listings. Rachel's hand shook as she turned the pages. The Bellamys, the Sanders, others she didn't recognize. Each page ended with a red stamp. Acquired. She kept flipping until she reached the final section. It was empty, except for one note. New. Prospect. Lives alone. No family. Investigating. Next to it, her photo. She dropped the binder. Just then, a click echoed behind her. The door at the top of the stairs creaked shut. Rachel spun, gun raised, but it was too late. A speaker crackled to life in the ceiling. A voice, calm and cold, filled the room. "You should have stayed away." The lights shut off, and the basement swallowed her whole. Rachel's flashlight flickered as total darkness took over. She stood perfectly still, listening. Every sound was louder underground. Her own breathing, the hum of machines powering down, and the soft shuffle of footsteps above her. She moved silently toward the staircase, but as she stepped on the first wooden plank, it collapsed under her boot. She fell hard, landing on her side. A low mechanical sound rumbled nearby, like a metal gate grinding open. Rachel reached into her jacket, switched batteries in her flashlight, and aimed it toward the back of the basement. There was now an open passage behind a false wall. It looked like a tunnel, narrow, low-ceilinged, carved out by hand. Wires snaked along the ceiling. Some were still hot. Whoever built this had serious technical skill. She stepped inside. The walls dripped with condensation, the smell of damp earth. Rachel sat alone in her motel room, the charred folder open on the bed. Patient number 000, Eleanor Tate. She stared at the name, now fully confirmed. Not a hallucination, not a fluke. She was real. The woman from the tapes wasn't some haunted soul caught in a domestic spiral. She was the very first subject in something the government never wanted to admit existed. Project Seraphim. The details were vague, but the implications were terrifying, according to the documents. The project began in 1998 under a classified directive. It was labeled Cognitive Extremist Protocol, a program that aimed to push the limits of the human mind, but not to heal it, to break it, control it. Subjects were chosen for emotional vulnerability, depression, isolation, past trauma. Eleanor was the perfect candidate. Recently widowed, no children, no known living family. The experiment involved a combination of environmental control, exposure to specific audio frequencies, and sleep deprivation. Over weeks, Eleanor's house had been fitted with devices, hidden speakers, cameras, altered lighting. The goal: to induce hallucinations, paranoia, an emotional collapse, and record every stage. But there was a twist in the report. Eleanor didn't break. She adapted, even in the face of torment. She became aware of the manipulation. The files suggested she stopped reacting, stopped fearing, and began watching the watchers. Unpredictable. The note said, displays cognitive behaviors beyond expected range. And then, The project abruptly ended. Or so it claimed. The final line of the report chilled Rachel to the bone. Subject unfit for continuation. Terminate and erase all records. Do not relocate. House is to remain AZ's for legacy observation. The house, the one Rachel had just visited, it wasn't abandoned, it was left behind. Intentionally, Rachel drove through the rain-soaked roads with a single goal: return to the house. This time, she wasn't going in unarmed. A hidden body cam was clipped under her jacket, and 2 backup drives recorded every second. She parked a few blocks away and walked the rest of the way through thick mist that curled around the trees like smoke. The house stood at the end of the road, silent, almost expectant. She stepped onto the porch. The door creaked open with ease. Inside, the air was colder than before. The flickering light bulbs overhead buzzed like angry insects. She retraced her steps past the hollow kitchen and peeling wallpaper. Back down into the basement, she paused. Something had changed. The wall that had once been sealed behind heavy shelves was now open, a doorway exposed. A narrow hallway stretched out beyond it, lined with dusty one-way mirrors. Rachel walked slowly, feeling like she was inside a laboratory, not a home. The hallway ended in a room half observation chamber, half torture cell. Cables still hung from the ceiling, their ends frayed. On the walls were scribbled lines, written over and over in Eleanor's shaky handwriting. You're not crazy if they really are watching. Rachel's chest tightened. In the center of the room was a single chair, bolted to the floor, and beside it, a camera. Still powered, still recording. She stepped forward and knelt by a hidden compartment beneath the floor tiles. Inside were more tapes, dozens of them, one labeled in red, June 17th, 2003, termination. Rachel picked it up just as a mechanical click echoed through the room. The lights snapped off.